Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 8:30, and I'm going to call this workshop to order. Today is Friday, February the 7th. It's 8:30 a.m., and we're in the central jury room of the Ralph H. Walton Jr. Justice Center at 1200 West Pearl Street in Granbury, Texas. We're pleased to have with us today Mr. Richard Hoffs, the outstanding citizen here and substitute pastor here, to do the invocation this morning.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that you permitted us to live in this great country, in this great state, and this great county. We pray today, Father, to thank you for these blessings and to pray that you continue to bless us with your limitless abundance. Father, as our elected officials meet today, we pray that your wisdom will be upon them, that your guidance will show them the way that is best in serving your will, as well as serving the citizens of this great county. We pray your blessings upon them and all who are here. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. So the workshop here today is to discuss enhancement of the jail facility. I thought we'd start today with Mr. Gary Adams up here, who just handed me the ink. Still wet? Okay, come on up, Mr. Adams, and tell us what you got.
Well, thank you all for having me back.
Is that microphone on? Yeah.
I'm going to bring my wife up here and let her know all these trips are to the courthouse. This packet I brought you today is what we've been working on, trying to refine and get the price down to where it's palatable. We don't have a lot of we don't have a lot of things in this package we originally started out with, because we were going to do a lot of remodel to the existing jail, and y'all asked us not to include that in what we're working on now. So on that first sheet is the price, but I'll walk y'all through the project first.
Drew, is there any way that you can get at least part of this
I was just saying, Judge, I don't have any, no one has given me anything for this. I can take some pictures with my phone and then try to.
Yeah, try to see if you can do that. I got mine 6 minutes ago myself, for the record. So let me just say right here at the beginning here, what you just said, let me just clarify. This is no remodeling to the existing jail.
No.
This is to create, what, 161 beds? 161 beds, correct?
Yes, sir.
New construction, new facilities, okay.
If you'll see on this drawing, the area that's yellow is all the new beds that we're talking about. And this is separation cells and multiple occupancy cells, along with a brand new kitchen. Not kitchen, but laundry. The green over on the right is an alternate. If the prices come in good and we have enough money, we can work on building this out as a shell or completely finish it out or whatever. But often in jails, sometimes you get real good prices and sometimes you don't. And depending on the complexity of it and the time it's being bid. I was asked when we thought this might be ready to go out on the street. If you pass a bond issue in May and we know the money's coming, we can turn the engineers loose and we can start design. And by November, we should be able to go out the street and bid this out and then start about this time next year with the construction. And we're looking at about 14 months to do this. A little more explanation in this. We're going to work with the jail commission on your visitation. They're talking about requiring us in the blue spot on the left of your drawing. We're asking them whether we really need to do that or not, because y'all are currently using visitation and your telephones and all of that. So we might not have to build that part of it. We don't have this new violet sale, but if the money comes in and we have the money to do it, we need to add that. The sheriff needs his violet sale. He only has one now. When we move out of the laundry, we'll have an area that we can expand into more medical or offices or whatever we need to do. And in the kitchen, we don't see any added construction. We just see all new equipment, some new equipment, and some additional equipment. Because when you start feeding twice as many people, you're going to have to do something about the food services. With that covered, let's talk price here. If we're talking about the new jail addition, that's in yellow, using square footages and experience, we came up with a budget there of the $18,320,550. We're not including any sheriff's offices. We're looking at renovation to the visitation, to the kitchen, the laundry equipment. There's a price there of $450,000. That gets a total of $18,770,050. Okay, in this, we have professional fees. That's the architectural, all the engineering, environmental studies, fire safety, all that's listed there. That price brings the total to $20,459,350. I don't know if that fits into your anticipated bond or however you plan on spending or getting this money, but we feel like by doing some adjustment, we may be able to bring that price down a little bit. If we do, then we can work with the contractor. We'll have a price for the additional alternate, and if there's money left, we will be able to go back at the time of the bid and add that to his contract, because he will bid that in his bid package. And we usually have several alternates. If we see some other things that need to be accomplished, we'll pick that up. The one thing I wanted to point out, if you're looking at that drawing, all this new construction is on the north side. By building there, we'll be able to insulate all those old walls that are there. I think y'all had a picture that the engineer took of the blocks falling out. That would be along that chase on the north side of the old construction. So this new part we're adding will actually insulate that whole north side of the building. Does that make sense, Judge? You see where the yellow meets the white?
White.
All of that will act as insulation to the old part. You see the continuation on the left side of how the separation cells that are there now just continue on in to the new part. There's a group of separation cells. Then over here to the right, there's another group of separation cells. Okay, all of this is separation cells on each side. I think it's 21 total. The jail commission requires that 10% of all your beds be made up of separation cells. This is the new laundry we're talking about. And this is quite a bit larger than your old laundry, which is not big enough now. So that's all new equipment, room to store the linens, extra mattresses, all those things can go in that area. Right here is a new rec yard, and I anticipate separating this, cutting it in two, and have a large rec and a smaller one. That way we can take these bad guys out of separation and wreck them one at a time, and they don't take up the whole rec yard. That's what they're doing now in these areas. So that takes care of that. Over here is the anticipated alternate one with 32 more beds. So when you look at the bottom line on this, we're looking at the new additional capacity with the alternate, and those numbers on the right. You currently have 192 beds. The what's in yellow will give us 161 more beds, and if we do the alternate, will give us another 32, which will be 193 new beds. Added the old beds gives us 385 beds. So you can see that's twice the size that you are now.
Questions here. We got a bunch of people that's lined up to speak
Okay.
up here. And so why don't you just stick around?
All right.
And I'm going to call the people that's already lined up, and this is a workshop here, and I'll call the ones that have already the public participation form. First speaker is Nate Criswell.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Only when the government loses would they try to give themselves a redo. Think about it. If the vote would have gone the other way, we would not be in this meeting right now, trying to consider an affirmation vote by the voters. Speaking of the last election, over 70% of Hood County voted this bond down about 3 months ago. Think about that for a second. This body, should respect the will of the voters and search for alternatives. Now, if you want to ask yourselves why we should search for alternatives, let's look at GISD. They ran 3 bonds in 24 months and lost every one of them. I don't think they'll be passing anything anytime soon because the voters don't trust them, and I fear that this body will experience that same erosion of trust it currently enjoys if we force a redo of the election. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Shannon Wolf.
Thank you and good morning. I was also going to mention that the ISD put forward 3 bonds, and the second one barely failed by only a couple of votes. But because they put that bond back up so quickly, I wanted to remind all of you that it failed resoundingly that third time because the people were angry. They did not listen to the will of the people. And I think that that's also going to happen here if you put this bond back up. Now, I also wanted to mention that we have illegals housed in our jail currently, and I was wondering, I feel certain that our sheriff is working with ICE on removing them. I don't know how many people who are in our jail currently are here illegally in the United States, and they need to be deported, but that would allow more beds to be opened. So I don't know the answer to whether Sheriff Deeds is cooperating with ICE, but I want to believe that he is. And I want to just ask, I thought that it was the rule that people who are in a jail can't be there over 1 year, and it seems like there are people there for much longer than a year, and I don't know why that is. But that's also room that needs to be opened up for other people to be in our jail. Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker is Tina Brown.
Considering that we are spending close to $250,000 every month on sending these people out somewhere else, I think we really need, we spent $120,000 last 2 weeks. I assume that's an average because the price is only going up. We need to do something, or we're just building jails in other counties. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Sheriff Deeds.
Thank you, and thank you, Gary, for working hard and bringing this to us. To answer some of the questions that were just brought up, we have 8 illegal aliens in the jail right now. The commissioners see that report every month. Here, 6 months ago, maybe, we were up to 18, 19, 20, but then it's dropped back down, and that only lasted for a few months. That's when it really got crazy down there on the border. But right now we got 8 in there. They're on an ICE hold, and when they get done with their district court, county court at law, if they go to prison, then they'll go to prison, and then they'll get sent to deported after they get done with whatever sentence they get. When they're done with the misdemeanor stuff and they're in my jail, we call ICE. They come and pick them up in less than their time frame that they're allotted, and life goes on. So 8 cells really isn't that much, or 8 beds really isn't that much to take up. The problem with this whole thing, it's, I like to feel like I'm a conservative Republican, just like everybody else in this room. But the reason I'm needing the county to spend this money is because when we try finding other jails to put these inmates in, and I didn't even have time to look this morning to see how many I got out. It's probably 50, 55, something like that is out of county today. Don't hold me to that. I didn't look exactly, but that's what it's been running because we don't have enough room. This jail is pretty well maxed out. People have said, why don't you let more out and other things. Well, what we got here, every day we get some people that are arrested, Class C assaults, different things like that. The city of Granbury is really good at some of that stuff too. They come in, they spend the night, Judge Hines comes in, gets them set up on a payment plan, they're out of there. They get a free breakfast, a couple bucks worth, and had spent the night in the jail cell. What we got for the most part in this whole jail is people that are felons, people that are working on becoming a felon. I don't have anybody that qualifies to let them out to do the yard or the road pickup, cleanup stuff. These are not some good people in there. So we got to keep them in there. Me as the sheriff, I've seen it where other sheriffs are going to let them out just to let them out. But I'm not going to do that. There's a lot of people that just need to be in jail and keep the people safe to get them away from them because all they do is cause trouble when they're out. And so I'm going to find a place for them. If it's not in Hood County Jail, it's going to be, right now, Johnson County Jail, Somerville County Jail, Erath County Jail. One of the things on the agenda for next Tuesday is Erath County is going up to $100 per bed per day for inmates. Johnson County is 105. Erath, or Somerville County, I don't know what they're going to do. I haven't had a chance to talk to them about that, but they'll probably go up just like everybody else. When we talked to a lot of other jails to find out if they got bed space available, we worked out a deal with Bosque County. They don't have any bed space. That was $85 a day. It's a small jail anyway. Parker County, when we were up there last, they finally said, come and get your inmates. We don't have enough room. And then I heard they're finding other jails to send them to also. So everybody in the state of Texas is getting low on bed space. They had a bed out in Garza County, the jail out in Garza County, and then they didn't pass their inspection, so Tarrant County and I believe it was Harris County pulled all their inmates out of there. I don't know what the reason was that they flunked their jail inspection, but we might have to move some to Garza County, so I'll have to ask for some of those big jail buses so we can move them around the state, maybe up into Oklahoma, maybe over to Louisiana, I don't know, but we got to have a place to put these guys, and with Trump working as hard as he is to deport these people, I think he can't get them out fast enough, and so he's going to be asking jails to keep them. I think they can only, a county jail can only keep like up to 20% or something like that. I haven't looked into those figures because there's no way I could ever do it with that size jail. But it's a limited number that they could keep, but I think they're going to get all the bed spaces bought up that they can. Don't know that for a fact, but I'm just looking at the future. What am I going to do if Johnson County says, come and get your 20 inmates? I don't know where I'm going to put them. And then if I stack them double deep in some of the cells there, then I stand the chance of getting red tagged by the jail commission. If they shut us down, then we got to move them all out. So it could go from very bad to way worse. So I don't know what we're going to do, but that's why I've been pushing this so hard, is because we need space for the future. We need space right now. We're getting by, but you're spending, a little over $1.5 million, and then transport, running back and forth and around the country, all that for those people, it's just under $500,000. So it's really $2 million you spent last year on out-of-county inmates. So that's only going to go up higher. So please think about this. That's, I'm not trying to waste money. I'm trying to figure out what we can do with these inmates to keep Hood County safe.
These 8 illegal immigrants that you have in jail right now, they're not there just because they're an illegal immigrant. They're there because they have committed a crime in Hood County. Am I right?
Yeah, I think in the last 2 years, we've picked up 51 illegal aliens. And the way they get into my jail, we don't have time or the option to go out and look for them. It's, if they break the laws of the great state of Texas, they're coming to jail. And once they get into the jail, then we find out they're illegal aliens and call ICE. They put a detainer on them. And we don't put the detainer on them. They say, yes, put the detainer on them, and then we do. And so when they're done with their whatever before Judge Haddix or Judge Bufkin, then ICE comes and picks them up. So, yeah, they broke a law of the state of Texas to get in jail. We didn't just go pick them up.
Okay. That's what I mean. Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. Please consider this.
The other question is, how long do you keep them in jail?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, there is no limit, I guess, for how long I can keep them in jail. And we've got one over there that every day the sun comes up, he sets a new record. This is a murder suspect, and I don't know why they haven't got him pushed through down in district court, but as of today, 1,230 days in captivity. So, and I think I've got, the other day I counted, I had 9 over a year in jail. So that's not a rule or a law that you can't keep them any certain time. It's once they get in, it's up to these judges how they get out. Not up to me. Thank you for reminding me.
So that's a little, 3 years, over 3 years that he's been in jail.
Yep.
3 years and 3 months.
Several over 700 days, several over 500 days.
Okay, the next speaker is Tina Lawrence.
Okay, real quick, the only thing I want to address is the fact that I don't want us to, like, kick the can down the road. I want for us to just give it a couple months, because we could possibly have a countywide election for one item. And I asked for the cost on that, and you're looking at close to $40,000 to add to that. Just approximately $34,000 in payroll. You've got election notices, supplies, ballots, printed ballots, and then the staffing and everything involved in that for just one item. So I would like you to consider that cost as well, because, and the voter fatigue, we're tired. So that's one thing I would like you to consider. I'm not asking that, I'm really glad to see we have a cheaper option than we had last time. I'd like to see us to have more options to see what we can do to fix problems. I'd like to see more, and that would give us time to see possible more actions, more things that could happen if you give it a little bit more time and think about November instead of in May. That's all.
Okay, next is Tim Bolton.
So I really probably just have a couple of questions for you guys, or maybe, I don't know, maybe this is for the sheriff, but I'm interested to know what's the average stay? How long do people come and stay in our jail? I make it sound like they're guests, but we know how they got there. And I want to know how many of those, too, are in a short period, like a day or two before they're released, especially the ones that are released on their own recognizance. So if they're just in there for a short time, then I don't know what other solutions we may have for that. Maybe, especially if then immediately after they get released on their own recognizance, they don't need to go in there anyway. But it's only been a few weeks, 13, 14 weeks since we just voted on this. And so I'll second what I just heard Ms. Lawrence say about that we have voter fatigue. We don't need to put really, we don't need to put the same bond on another ballot. So the voters have spoken. So, and I don't know what, I'm sorry, I came in late actually. I thought we were starting at 9 and I was a little early, but I came in late, so I apologize for what I may have missed. But I don't know how much was covered already on some of these questions about staffing for that. I mean, I know that takes more jailers and more equipment and more uniforms and more cars and all the rest of that. And I don't know what the cost to jail our excess to those other counties. I heard a little bit of that, and it made me ask this question about how much of our, how much does it cost for us to have somebody in our own jail overnight, or for 24 hours or a day, however long they stay, and compared to how much that costs us or that they charge us from our neighboring counties' jails. I think that's it. Thank you.
Is it okay that I'm answering the questions? So our cost per day, the way it is right now, we have transport, which runs the cost up a little bit for the overall jail budget, but it's $85.88 per day to house a person in our jail. Like I had stated earlier too, that with misdemeanor crimes, Class C's, A's, B's, those guys spend the night in jail and get bonded out the next day or get released by a judge. In whatever way that is, with its PR bond or not. They don't do that many bonds, PR, but they have done more. And I've even done a few of those because of medical reasons, just because we're sitting on them at the hospital. We had a lady that was up at the hospital in Tarrant County at Harris Downtown, and that cost about $5,000 just for the Johnson County people to sit on her before we got up there and took over. She's back. She's now off to prison, so we're done with that. She got back on Saturday. She left on Monday. But the people that we have in the jail now on a day-to-day basis are the felons waiting to come to district court. Some, like you said, 500 days or more, and I think we got like 9 that are over a year. And then we've got new ones coming and going. The list here recently, the judges have been working them through pretty fast. So there's long lists of them coming in and long lists of them going out, but it just keeps going back up the same direction. So people are doing bad things, breaking the law, and they coming back to jail, and we're trying to keep them there. But the misdemeanor crimes, we're getting them out. So I really don't have any misdemeanor people in there unless they're sitting out a few days. And then the other thing that Judge Messina did in the past and Judge Haddix has stayed with is weekenders. So they come in on the weekend, so the count goes up about 8 or 10 or something, and then they're back out on Monday. So the ones that are in there all the time, Monday through Friday, for sure, are just felons. So
Let's talk about the cost. He mentioned the cost of the thing. Just what was the total cost that Hood County had to pay to other counties for housing inmates for the last fiscal year? Do you have that?
Yeah, I have it.
You have?
$1,518,527.50. That's for fiscal '24. That does not include the transport officers, vehicles, none of that's in that. That's just strictly the amount of money we wrote checks to other counties to house our inmates in FY '24. Again, $1,518,527.50. And so far to date, in FY '25, which started October 1, we have spent $465,670, and we budgeted $1.6 million. So we're a fourth of the way into that amount, and we're now a third of the way into the the fiscal as of right now. And those numbers, again, do not include Sheriff Department personnel, vehicles, and such.
transport for last year, not counting the vehicles themselves, but counting maintenance, gas, 466,000, I remember off the top of my head. So
Yes, sir.
466,000 for the transportation and vehicles.
not counting the vehicles, just the fuel, the people, and maintenance on the vehicles, but not buying the vehicles.
$466,618.60.
So that was what is the total cost then for what we spent?
Based on those two numbers, we're well over $2 million for FY '24.
So does that answer your question there, that it costs $2 million a year because we don't have enough jail capacity? I guess you were the one that was talking about cost.
It was, yeah. So I think that gives us part of the equation. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. I think that gives us part of the answer, the $1.518 million that has been spent to date. But the missing part of that equation that I would want to know then is how many nights in those other jails. We spend $1.5 million on those other jails to house our inmates in other counties. Then how many nights was that total? So then I can at least.
It varies. I mean, some of them will be there, a week, a month.
No, I get that. I know person by person that varies. I'm
Right.
talking about in total, how many nights in jail did 1.58 million buy us?
You could probably take an average of 55 times 365. So every day, there's probably an average of 55.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good way to do it. I'll take
The
that.
average, the daily jail report that we receive, if you look at it, the average is going to be about 55, 56 prisoners out of county per day.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's probably enough numbers for me to work with. What I wanted to get down to is then, if you take that $1.518 million divided by the number of nights that we had inmates spending at those other jails, and then you divide that again by $85.88 that the sheriff just offered to us. Now, is that the better deal, right? I mean, I know there's other costs involved, but is that the better deal than building a whole new jail? So part of the population, I mean, one of the things that the sheriff, thank you, by the way, again, that one of the things that he mentioned was that we have a crackdown on illegal aliens. And so those persons might spend time in our jail, but I see that as a fairly short term. I mean, it's not going to go 4 years, and you're going to build that jail that's going to last well more than 4 years. So as those numbers start to taper off, when those inmates are collected and have overnight stays in our jails, that won't be perpetuated, because eventually they're going to leave the country. So
We only have 8.
we only have 8? Right, well.
All right,
The suggestion was that number was going to increase, and that the overnight stays, or the total period of stay, was going to increase, because we might have to hang on to them while we have them on immigration hold, some kind of ICE hold, and then before they get deported, that we would have to hang on to them, which, okay, fine, but that won't last forever. Once they get deported, then they're deported.
Most of FY '24, the
Yeah.
number was 3 to 5, maybe.
3 to
That
5?
was- You know, that was all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, all of a sudden because of what ICE is doing and what Border Patrol's doing. This is strictly the number of people that have been in our jail.
Again, these people aren't in jail, they're not sitting in our jail on immigration charges right now. They've committed other acts that they're awaiting trial or
Yeah, yeah.
awaiting disposition on that. So they're not here on an ICE hold.
I get
They're
that.
here for other reasons, so.
I wasn't just bringing it up out of the
Yeah.
blue. I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
no.
interrupt you, but
No,
I just meant
this
that
information.
The sheriff just
these
mentioned
are-
that.
This is the kind of discourse that we very much need. We need to answer these questions. We need to hear the feedback on things. This is the way that I kind of see this deal. I have from the beginning, I often joke about it and say, hey, I go to all the other commissioners in the neighboring counties and ask them to build a bigger jail so we can ship them over there, because
Right.
it's cheaper per day to do that. I've said that since I got in this seat, kind of tongue in cheek.
I said that
but,
jokingly from this podium back in when we
now,
talked about it before.
here's the situation. The reality of that situation is that is in a constant state of flux, the number of beds that are available out there. It comes and goes. There's supply and demand pressures on that. All of a sudden, there's way more demand than there is supply, and you know what that does to the costs.
Mm-hmm.
We're paying more to house our inmates out of county in most places. We still have a couple that are cheaper, but we're paying 25% more to send them over to Johnson County right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is a significant cost. Now, let me address some of these other questions that we've got kind of going on. There are various reasons why somebody may spend more time over here than others, okay? Let me just throw out a hypothetical. Perhaps you have a victim in a crime that's a homeless person that they can't find, that somebody was mugged or beaten or something like that, and they, hop a train and they're in Mississippi and nobody knows where they are. You got a bad person in jail that you can't just let out on the streets. But somebody's looking for the victim on this crime so that this thing can come to court. There's a reason that something perhaps isn't run through the system quite as quickly as it could be. I know, talking to Judge Bufkin, that there have been times where we're processing 120% of the people that are brought into our system. That's, in other words, if you had 100 people come in this month, they've resolved or disposed 120 of those people. They're chopping into this number. The fact is, they're coming in faster. It's a constant situation. We've been over our limit by a lot. I think over the last year, I haven't taken the average, but I think to say that we're housing 50 out of county on a daily basis is not way out of line. Mm-hmm. Now, is that cost, and especially last year, because it was cheaper last year, and that's a varying cost. It was cheaper last year for us to house the inmates. I think it was a little bit closer to $78 a day, somewhere in that ballpark. So we also had Stephenville last year, or Erath County was at $60 a day? Is that 65, okay. They've gone up to 100. Again, we're back to that supply and demand thing that we talked about. So somewhere in here is a question. And this is what I'm throwing on the table, and this is where my position is on this. We need these questions asked. We need this to be absolutely 100% transparent. We want everybody to know what we're dealing with. We have an issue. That's why this bond is back on the table, because there's a problem. We're sending 50 people out of county every day. We need to do something to resolve this issue. Is it 161 beds? Is it 193 beds? Is it 209? Is it 50? I don't know. Here's another factor that's involved in this deal. Talking with the sheriff and administration, there is increased efficiency in this new jail.
I was going to ask that too.
Yeah. So if you build 50 more beds, okay, you have to hire 4 people to cover that for all 4 shifts, okay? So it's 1 more jailer in there for that, well, it's 48, is it 48? Yeah. So you've got 1 more jailer for that 48. You don't need to add administrative staff. You don't need a new jail captain. You don't need a new lieutenant. So your labor costs don't automatically double if you double the capacity of your jail.
Yep, I was going to ask that too. If there was some built-in efficiency to that we would get that 85, 88 number down by doing something like that on a cost per night basis. Does that really translate? I mean, look, I mean, you got to spend the millions to build the thing, so there's
Sure. And there, somewhere in here is a balance. Somewhere in here, these lines cross each other that say, what do we spend to build capacity as opposed to what we're doing right now?
One of the things that we've seen, and this is not our first data, your kitchen.
Come to the mic so we can get it recorded.
The kitchen is probably our biggest example of savings. You already have the kitchen built. We add some more equipment to it.
You can speak into the mic.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We take the kitchen. Structurally, it's okay. It just needs more equipment to feed this double capacity. But we're also seeing our food cost per meal drop because you're now buying more food. You go to your food supplier, and now you're bidding in 390 meals times 3 a day instead of 190. So we've seen quite a savings right there in that. We're also seeing the efficiency. You may have to hire a few more people to take care of some of the additional things, but it's also going to free up holding this many, Sheriff. You're also going to be able to have some trustees that you can use that currently you said you can't even get out and mow the lawns anymore because you don't have anybody that's trustworthy. So when you get up to 300, there's going to be some trustees in that.
And even some of the transport officers right now, do you need fewer hours from transport officers on the road? They can be in the jail tending to inmates. Yep. So this equation has a lot of variables. And again, the last thing that I want to do is to try to shove this thing down somebody's throat. That's not what this is about. We have an issue. We have a need. We are way over the capacity of our jail, and we need to sit down and have a reasonable conversation about this. We need to talk about this, explore this option, and come up with the right answer.
All right, well, while you're workshopping it, I appreciate that, quantities of scale and all of that. I get how that plays out. But while you're talking about those things in your workshops to make some decisions on this, then I do want to know those questions about what's the average stay and how many of those stays are just overnight or over the weekend, and are those people, you know, if it's, I don't know, simple possession or whatever, something that we release them PR, I heard personal recognizance to let those guys out on their own, then do they really need to stay overnight and take up one of our beds that costs us then to send somebody else elsewhere, or all those things that need to be considered. So I appreciate all that. I would want to see those. You guys have them already. I don't need to see them myself, but just for your own consideration in those workshops that you're going to have to discuss this, the cost that it takes to go out to those other counties. I know Johnson is an expensive one by as much as 25% more, I think you said, Commissioner Andrews. So that certainly has consideration. I wonder if there's, as much as we're sending capacity out to, or inmates out to other jails, does building this give us excess capacity that we could sell it to those other jails? If it costs us $85 and that cost is going to go down because of quantities of scale, then can we charge them $100 and do it for $75?
Now, let me just
I don't know
throw
if
this
there are
out.
revenue opportunities.
The cost, the way that, and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you come up with the cost per day is based on your budget. So if you have a bigger jail, you have a bigger budget. So just by looking at this, the 85 will go up because his budget will be bigger because of
Right.
more staff, more expenses. Go ahead.
Right. Take it. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Yes. So when it comes to the cost per day, you're looking at the jail budget total plus our capacity. It's divided by our capacity. So if we increase our capacity, I mean, regardless of, you could do a crazy number and say our next budget's $8 million with a capacity of 400 beds or something like that. Let's just say we get a new jail, whole new building, whatever it might be, and then you divide that by 365, you could come out with a much, much smaller number than $85 a day. You're looking at like in the 30s, $35 a day for our own inmates. So what he was talking about, housing other inmates for us and charging other counties, if we house any inmate in our jail, it would cost that $35 a day, and then everything after that would be what we would charge these other agencies to house, just like they're doing for us. So, but that's how you come up with that.
Okay, so we know Johnson's 105, ERATH is about to be 100.
About to be 100, yes.
Remind me, Brown and...
Brownwood is $50 a day.
I thought it was.
Maybe it's $65 a day.
Yeah.
They've gone up
60
multiple
or
times. It started at
65,
45,
yeah.
then they went up shortly after that and have gone up. You're getting a trend, and people are just going to keep going up, especially if they start hearing other agencies are going up. They're going to be following trend. So,
And we haven't had any in Brown for
no,
a
we have
while.
not.
They've-
And the
they've
sheriff mentioned it
closed us
earlier
out, so.
regarding these other agencies and housing our inmates. A lot of them are having the same issues. They don't have the space for their own inmates, let alone somebody else's. So that's one big reason why we don't go to Parker County. It's because every time we do, and it's every time we have, they have called us saying, come get your 10 inmates. And now we got to figure out where are they going, where they're going to go from a lower cost facility, and now they're going to go to Johnson County, because Johnson County does have the space, and we'll have to send them over there, but they're $105 a day. So,
Parker are both sending inmates out of county right now,
yes, sir.
of their own people.
Yeah, and Brownwood they're about the same size as we are, so they're not much bigger than us at all.
And
I think they're about
Somerville
the
is...
same. Somerville County, when the cost for Somerville County, is that what you're talking about? 55, but there's a good chance they may be going up. And they're also doing us a favor. They house for other agencies, and the other agencies pay them more than what we do because we're neighboring. We've been with them so long. We have a good relationship. But it's only a matter of time. Cost of everything's going up, right? So these other agencies are going to start bringing them up too, the cost of these inmates, Somerville included. It's
Yeah, and
gonna
I think
happen.
that the point that I was making is even if you double the capacity, you don't double your budget. That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah,
you double
let's
the
just say we double the
capacity-
budget, and your number for cost per day is still going to be significantly lower than what it is now. It will always go up. We're going to reach $100 a day for housing our own inmates, because every year our budget's going to be going up because we're housing inmates out of county, and the cost of that's going up. So your budget every year is going up. Our capacity is remaining the same. So that's going to continue to go up if we don't add more capacity. We have to do something unless we just want to keep spending a ton of money on our own inmates, let alone those outside. So
Have you looked at the report on the jail standards website lately? I didn't have time to pull it with the urgency of this meeting on what capacity is currently being built around the state. Maybe you know.
Oh,
But
I
there's a
don't know that.
report that shows every jail that's under construction, what phase it's in, when it's coming online, how many beds. Anybody have that information?
I don't have that information. Honestly, it's going to depend on the area, obviously, so higher
Yeah, that-
population and stuff like that's going to have your more beds are going to be coming on board, so.
Yeah, that report is available. We just need to take a look at it and include that in our analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you way up in the panhandle, the transportation cost and the time factor,
Well, that's why,
it's going to have to be somewhere.
Yeah, and I've spoken about it in open court before regarding these other agencies. Lubbock's looking for beds that are over here with us. Like, they're willing to bring inmates from across the state to these other jails because they don't have the space.
well,
So,
it just goes capacity. If you add capacity to, this isn't really a market, but I'm going to use that word. If you add capacity, the price will go down. So we need to know, we need to understand what is the capacity that's coming online in the state of Texas over the next year, 2 years. And it's in a report. Jail Standards has it on their website. We need to know that.
yeah, that'd be good. And regarding the total cost to house inmates right now, that 1.6 million, take into consideration, if we don't house inmates out anymore, you can utilize that 1.6 million that's already budgeted for other things. You're talking about staffing for a whole new jail. You're not even going to get close to 1.6 million to staff 13 other officers that will be needed to supervise that many inmates. But also, you're not going to have 400 inmates or whatever it might be on day one either. So it's going to be a gradual thing, and the money's there. Because it's currently being spent on other agencies that are using that money for their own benefit.
If I may add this, Harris County has 5,000 inmates in Louisiana. So if there were any beds anywhere, they would be bringing them home. They're cheaper over there, but there's a lot of problems in doing that. We're currently involved in 6 other jails, adding on, and even what we're adding on is not taking them out like we're talking about here. Every one of them is shipping prisoners. With the time they bring theirs back, they're going to have very little room, excess room. In all this, you've got to figure 80%. We don't talk about it much, but the jail commission says we need to keep 20% available in this jail for classification, overruns, all of that. So even though you have a 400-bed jail, you're not able to put 400 people in there. We are currently, and Wayne's not with me today because he's in Hale County. We're fixing to break ground up there on a 192-bed new jail, and they're already booking inmates for a year and a half out from the counties around them. So if you have to drive all the way to Post, Texas with your inmates, you're spending a lot of time on the road. The other thing that nobody talks about is the medical. When they leave this facility and you send them somewhere else, they all get sick. I mean, it's just going to happen because they think that's the way their ticket back home. So your medical costs go up.
I want to revisit that 1.6 million. I'm wondering if it would be beneficial to add that those same inmates, if they were here in Hood County, would be costing us 1.4 million. So it's not an additional 1.6. It is, the difference actually turns out to be around 200,000 is the difference between those two, not 1.6. So if you look at that, that's probably, it's maybe $25,000 per month that we would be sending those out. If they were sick in a different jail, they're also going to be sick in ours. If they have to go medical in Tarrant County or Parker or wherever else, they're going to have to get medical help here in Hood County as well.
Now,
So
that is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Okay, that's
interrupt you,
fine.
but when they're here in our county, that's part of the hospital lease.
Okay,
that they-
so the
that they
medical
take
would
care of our
work out,
indigents, so-
but it's still 1.6 elsewhere 1.4 here, and the difference is about 200,000. So it's not just an additional 1.6 million.
I don't have the numbers with me, but
Okay.
I came up significantly higher than that. I think it was
All
closer
right,
to
I would love to
600,000
see
a
those
year.
numbers
Yeah.
because these, I'm just hearing 1.6
Sure,
tossed
sure.
around today. So I think that must be included in the discussion so that people know.
Absolutely.
If they were here, it wouldn't be free. They
Right.
we have to pay for inmates here too.
Right.
So that, and I think if we look at the difference, does that pay for $21 million in a bond that taxpayers are going to have to pay for? Does it make sense to us? And I don't know. I want Hood County to have what we need. I do. I'm not convinced though. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay, based on what Kevin said earlier, that we have 120%, I don't know how long that's been going on, but it seems to me if you've got 120%, that within the next probably 4 years, we would be caught up. So
At some point,
my
that
thought is-
efficiency has to go, I mean, you can
Right.
only achieve 100% at some point.
Right, so what my point is that let's just say we're going to get caught up. Wouldn't it be cheaper to get in an interim judge for 3 or 4 years and an extra clerk to get these people processed and get them out, use an alternate property plan? And you're talking about people on the weekend that come in, usually those are people who get caught drunk driving. Isn't there a way that we could come up with a less jail type situation where you could do like, we have the temporary buildings in the school for people who aren't violent that they got caught with a DUI and they're going to be gone on Monday?
I don't think that that's actually a real large factor in
Well,
this
it was
equation.
brought
I
up
think
that on the
it's just-
weekends that it's higher. So I was going to say,
Right.
if we had another small facility for those real close by where, they're not hardened criminals, they had too much to drink and the
Well,
sheriff's
and I
got them.
think that basically what happens there is you have to have some capacity in your jail to process people that come in that day. You can't run at 100%. You have to have a little bit of buffer there. So, and I'm not real sure exactly where that buffer is, but I think that most of just the overnighters and the weekenders figure into that buffer.
Okay, but
know,
you
there
understand
may
what I'm
be-
saying also
Yeah,
with
no,
the
completely,
20%,
completely.
we could get rid of that really quick, 3 or 4 years, get rid of that overage, go with a smaller alternative. And
Well,
just
and
by bringing in another judge, an extra judge and an extra clerk and get the things processed.
Well, and I think I've had these conversations with Judge Bufkin quite a bit, and there are some other efficiency questions that come into play.
Well, seems like a
Can it
salary.
Yeah, well, I mean.
A salary or two is cheaper than building a,
Right, but I mean, the processing of the cases, building the cases, the investigations, and all these other things, all of this stuff takes time. And like I said, there are different reasons for why things go through at different
right, I know
times.
lawyers
And,
postpone and postpone.
Yeah,
However,
yeah, and
that could
that's-
be eliminated as well.
Well,
So,
yeah.
all right, that's all.
All right, so I went and did some quick and dirty math on the numbers that you gave me, that if you figure in excess of 55 inmates that we house in other jails, 365 days is about 20,000, 20,075, I think was the number. And you divide that by the $1.518 million that we spent housing them in other jails, that number comes out to $75.64. So it costs us $10 less to put them in other jails on average over the course of an entire year than it does the difference of about $200,000 in savings to put them over there than it is to keep them in our own jail.
Yeah, I assure you, we've crossed that line of where we're saving money, because I've been a big proponent of that. Again,
Yeah.
for
I'm
years,
taking
I've been
the
saying-
overall year average.
That's with ERAF being at 65, they're going up to 100, so the average is going to go up.
Yeah.
But not to 100, because we still have a few that are, or one that is currently less than $100 a day.
Right.
But
Right, I
you're
get that.
correct. You're correct on your math, that was the average for last year.
Yeah, and while you're making that comparison then, I mean, while their cost is going up, or the cost that they charge us is going up, probably because their costs are going up, our costs will be going up
Right, groceries are going up.
Right. Our costs will be
Utilities are
going up
going up.
proportionally as well, so then that 85, 88 is going to be on the up, headed up, so on the increase. So then, I wanted to ask this too, sorry, my notes are becoming a little bit of a mess because I'm doing all this math all over the place. But that 20% overrun capacity that we have to have is, under what circumstance do we use that other capacity? I mean, it's not just always sitting empty 20%. Is that what you were talking about, Commissioner Andrews, about daily intake buffer? That's when we use that?
Yeah, we do not have 20% available in our particular situation right now. That's probably best practice or whatever, but we're stuffed. We don't have the luxury of having 20%
We're not stuffed to
empty.
80%, we're stuffed to 100%, and then we're
We're
sitting.
stuffed to
we're
125%, I
Yeah.
believe, is a.
But it's not 125% of our 80, it's 125% of our 100.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
it's 125% of our total
So
capacity, yeah.
as of today, we have, Mr. Bolton, as of today, so our capacity is 192, correct? Okay, today we have 180 inmates in our jail. And then total inmates is 235, which is the 55 that are out of county.
Okay,
So.
yeah, thank you.
To bring back Tina's point of another judge to move these people through, would it be possible for Judge Haddock to maybe to hear some of these cases? Would that be possible, just to relieve the backlog that we have right now? Because that seems to be a major problem. And again, I'm looking for alternate ways where we don't take on a bond. But that's just, let's get another judge in. I think a salary for a new judge would be a whole lot less than what it would cost us to take on this bond. It'll be a lot less to the taxpayers.
Anybody else have anything to say?
Just, for the record, just to make sure everybody understands, last year, the Sheriff's Department transports out of county 960, 218 mental transports, that's to Wichita Falls or other places, 27 out-of-state transports, and 10 emergency detention orders. That totals, those numbers are all total of 1,215. That does not include the 554 in-county transports, in other words, from the jail to court. This year so far, for calendar year 25, we've done 104, 82 out-of-county transports, and 21 mental transports, and 1 emergency, detention order. That's already, here we are, mid-February. That's the numbers for the first 6 weeks of 25. So, this is a continual, issue with the population going up. It's going to be a continual issue going forward. And in looking at the options of what we possibly can do to help not spend the $1.6 million, which is what's budgeted for FY25 for out-of-county housing. And at this rate, we're probably going to bust that. Looking at the options of what can we do? And, basically I come up with the concept of let's build what he's showing on the screen, the new at a reduced number and not do the full package. There's no remodeling in the current facility other than, rearranging the kitchen area. Everything else is all new build. And that was what I asked the architects to do, was just design, look at what we can do for a new build only. And this is what he came up with. And the numbers that we came up with for that is, again, the proposed budget would be $20,459,350. So, that's, where we're at this point. If there is a bond election and it goes forward, we're probably, as he stated earlier, let contracts by the end of the year. Is that correct, Gary? And let contracts, and basically we're probably right at 2 years from that point to where it's occupancy ready and approved by jail standards. And see, it's not just, we the county have to, and the sheriff has to be passed by jail standards, and they have to approve of everything that is going on. I mean, this is not, there will be at least 2 and probably 3 trips to Jail Standards Commission if there is a bond election and it passes before we ever start letting contracts, to build. So that's the process. But, at this point, last year was, again, was $466,618.60 just for transport expenses. So, that's what, you add that to the 1.518 million for out-of-county housing, that, we're busted 2 million. That's where we're at, folks. It's serious.
And another relevant point to figure into this equation, we have maintenance issues in the current jail that we can't really get in and deal with because we don't have access. The showers in the current building are all leaking through the walls into the pipe chases behind. You go walking through the pipe chases and there's puddles of water all over the place with, and we can't get in on the other side to seal those showers. You got to have that shower. It's got a room, 24 people in that room in there. You can't really shut that shower down, and you'd have to shut it down for multiple days in order to seal it correctly. We're looking for some hopeful solutions that we can get in there and again, maybe we don't stop 100% of the water penetrating, maybe we stop 80%, and it's, and it's something that we can work our way through. We have, at this point, we now have 2 collapsed sewer lines in that jail. Both of them, fortunately, aren't all that impactful. A couple of them are between some floor drains in the kitchen, and another one is on a mop sink. Cast iron, what is the life expectancy of cast iron? I don't know. My brother has cast iron in his house, and he's just now started having problems with it, and it was built in the 70s. This is a 24/7, 365 facility. There's water coming through that thing all the time. It's not like a regular home where, you got most of the day, you don't actually have water coming through these pipes. So I don't know where we are. Are these pipes going to break in the next month, or can they last another 20 years? I have no idea. But I do know that right now we've got 2 of those that have collapsed. If we collapse in the wrong spot, we're in trouble. I don't know what happens at that point. I don't know, can you come in and in an emergency jackhammer up the slab at one point where everything comes together, put a temporary lift station in that, pump it up over or across and get it out of there, and then come in and replace that section of pipe where it's collapsed while housing the inmates in there? I don't know. Or are we going to, tomorrow we've got to find 180 beds somewhere because we shut the whole thing down for 2 weeks while we replace that piece of pipe. I don't know the answer to that either. But that I have continually said the biggest problem that we have with that building, the most the imminent threat, and this is not an if, this is a when if we don't get that piping replaced. When that sewer system fails, where is it and how big an impact is it? That's a very real concern with our current building also.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, because I think that maintaining our jail is very important, and I think things like water lines, showers, sewer lines, all those things are very important to take care of. I'm trying to find a way that we can reduce the impact on a taxpayer. That's what I'm trying to do, and I know that you're concerned about that too.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, though, if there are other avenues to find money without such a big bond, or maybe take part of the bond, take the burden for part of the bond. We don't know what's going to happen with the ISD with these vouchers coming our way. I just don't know. Maybe nothing, but there are other things that are coming our way too. I know that with HCAD, there's the question of an audit, and is there money that needs to be returned? Is that money that we could use towards the jail? So it's not that I am opposed to the jail, it's the money. Can we find it in other ways? Can we get more information on this, and can we put it on the November ballot and not the May ballot to find more ways that we can pay for this? Like I said, I'm not against the jail. I really am against the bond for the jail. So if we could maybe find a different way to pay for it.
Well, and that's
part of it.
That's where
Pay
I
for
am.
part of
I
it.
think that we need to open up this discussion. We need to have workshops. We need to get, I think the bonds that have failed because the information is not out there for people to make the correct decision.
I think that's-
So let's get the information out there. You may still be opposed to it, even after looking at it and analyzing everything. You may say, I don't like this, I don't want it to go this way.
Right.
But I think that we come to the best decision, the
I
wise
agree.
counsel of many.
I agree. We need to come to the best decision. I really side on reducing the money that taxpayers have to pay because people are struggling, and I want to relieve that. So I do land on that side.
Make one thing clear.
Yes,
If
sir.
there is a bond election and it passes, there will not be any increase in the tax debt ratio. It will stay exactly where it is today. So you will not see any change in the tax rate as a result of the bond if it passes. It will stay exactly where it is. The county is in a financial position that is what we'll do. And the bond, if there is a bond election and it passes, the total payoff on that would be by 2032 or less.
Well, thank you for being concerned about that, and I really appreciate that. But I do know that as families take on more debt, the debt goes up even if they only pay the same amount each month.
That's because of
So,
depreciation of their properties.
well, it's not just taxes, it's with everything. More debt means we owe more. And I want to be careful with that, but it's not that I'm against the jail. It really is about raising taxes on Hood County people. I'm really not for that.
But your
So,
taxes are
thank
going
you.
out of county, the numbers we've already shared. Your tax dollars are paying for those out-of-county housings.
And the question that I have is, would we be paying more for a bond than we are going to be paying them? It was that 1.6 million out of county that would be 1.4 in county, and the number that would be different, how much more burden would that be for the taxpayer? And that I'm not settled with, and maybe I just need to get more information on that. I want to see more information on that. I can't quite saddle more taxes on Hood County people. It doesn't seem right to me, but thank you so much.
Commissioner Wilson, just a question on that. I haven't seen any numbers we just got this today at 8/27. So I'm not sure we haven't seen any financial analysis on the length of the term of the bond, the interest rate of the bond. So I don't know how you can make that statement that the tax rate will not go up when we have no financial analysis on that.
Would you like to comment on that?
We haven't seen it. We just got this today.
So there isn't one yet, but we shared that number with them this morning, and so they're working on the bond structure right now to see what that would look like.
So we haven't, so I'm just going to Do you have any more speakers? Yes. Okay. Oh, and it looks like Buffkin.
Judge Buffkin,
Judge
what-
Buffkin would like to speak.
Go ahead. You might answer some of my questions.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for coming over on short
Yeah.
notice.
Sure, I was in court, and we actually had criminal cases on the docket. We have criminal cases coming up this afternoon. And I just wanted to come over and answer any questions that you may have. I don't know what you've all been discussing exactly. Of course, I can take no public position on things like a bond, and so I don't. But I will tell the commissioners some of the things that we've been doing to try to keep this county safe, and also to, at the same time, be cognizant of the taxpayers. I'm relying some on numbers that I've gotten from the district attorney's office here, but I took the bench in 2021 in the middle of the year, right as COVID was ending, and that year, according to their numbers, there were 404 case dispositions of felony cases. The next year, that went up to 425. Then, the next year, that went up to 634, and then in 2024, that went up to 805. So we're talking about, in a 4-year span, going from 404 to 805, which is almost double. Our clearance rate numbers have been very strong every year that I've been the judge as far as criminal court cases. How have we done that? We've done that through a lot of work from a lot of different people. I've pushed the docket as best I know how to with the resources that we have, okay? What have we done? We've added a lot of extra dockets. They're called status dockets. We've just had them next door. We've got some more this afternoon. The district court used to not have Friday afternoon dockets when I took the bench. We've gotten so busy that, of course, we've added to the docket. These status dockets add a lot of extra work for a lot of different people, but they push our cases out faster than they were before. In addition, we have a cross-assignment order with Judge Haddix that has been in place for, I think this is the 3rd year. Never existed before. That is an order in which each of us can use each other. Of course, the cases are still my cases. I was elected to preside over the felony cases, but I've tried to be a good steward, tried to work together with Judge Haddix. He's been very fair in helping whenever we need him. The thing you've got to understand about the cross-assignment order is that typically what will happen is the cross-assignment order is used for the lower level felonies, okay? And so we have 4 different levels of felonies in Texas. We have state jail felonies. The maximum punishment range is 2 years in state jail. We have 3rd-degree felonies where the maximum punishment range is 10 years. 2nd-degree felonies, maximum punishment range is 20 years. And 1st-degree felonies where the maximum punishment range is life in prison. And so we have used the cross-assignment order as a way to resolve the lower level felonies, meaning state jail and 3rd-degree felonies. Before, as you can imagine, we have so many 1st-degree and 2nd-degree felony cases. The defendants, their attorneys, knew that it was unlikely that the lower level felonies would go to trial because we had to take care of the higher level felonies. So what would tend to happen is those cases would not get resolved as fast as they could. And so we not only come up with a cross-assignment order so that I can send cases down there, we told all the attorneys, get ready for trial because we will try your cases if we need to. Just that alone, the threat of trial for Judge Haddix has been the main benefit from that order. But we still use it regularly. We've had multiple jury trials every year that we've had it. We've just started a new year. We just had a jury trial down in his court a few weeks back when we had 2 other jury trials going on in my courts. That's 3 jury trials at once. I think we use that cross-assignment order more than any other judge that I know of. It's used by me strategically to try to move the docket. Now, if you want to waste taxpayer money, the way to do that would be to require that he tries more of those cases. Why do I say that? Because it's very expensive to have trials. Every time you have a trial, there's then an appeal. If they can't afford an attorney, the county pays for it. It's thousands of dollars. Of course, everybody has the right to a trial, and if the cases can't get resolved, then we use that order. But if they can get resolved through the threat of sending them down there, then we resolve them. And so that's how we've used that order. So we'll continue to use it under my supervision to try to save taxpayer money. But also what it does is it gives us a lot of flexibility. If somebody has a motion for speedy trial and we've got to get it tried, we can send it down the hall. And he can send stuff to me as well. Another thing that we've done is Judge Haddix and I have concurrent family law jurisdiction. And because of the jail, we decided that it would be better use of my docket time right now to try to have more docket time in the district court for these felony cases. And so he's agreed on a temporary basis to take all the new family law filings. I still have plenty of family law cases that will pend for a long, long time, as Judge Massengill knows. Those things can pend for 18 years if you have a child and you keep coming back, right? And we will at some point take on new filings. But what that has done is it's freed up more docket time. So now on Monday mornings, which used to be not a criminal day, we have more criminal cases being heard then. In addition, what we've done is we've just been very flexible. I will hear cases anytime. Just now, I was in district court whenever I learned about what was being said in here, and I left, but we had a case in which a person requested a bond reduction, and as I left the court, I said, hey, if y'all want to work out a plea, let me know, I'll come back. Okay? So we've done a lot of things to try to help. But at the same time, we have to keep people safe in this community. And so everything's a balance. We could empty the jail out tomorrow, and we would be a very dangerous place. So my job, what I was elected to do, is to figure out how to use the resources that I have to most effectively move our justice system in a positive direction. So that's what I've tried to do. In the years since I have been district judge, our criminal numbers have been very, very strong as far as the amount of cases that we're moving, and that's because of a lot of different things. I want to commend the district attorney's office because they have gotten in line with what we're trying to do. We had a jury trial week last week, okay? In most district courts across the state of Texas, you may have one jury trial, general jurisdiction. You may have one jury trial every month or two, okay? Here, we had our 2 jury trials that we push every time we have a trial docket. And we had a docket, a short list of, I don't know, 8, 9 cases, I'm speaking off of memory. And every single one of them we pushed. And we got, I think, just about all of them, but maybe one resolved that day because they had the threat of trial. And then we had 2 jury trials. And that was all done before Friday. And today we have docket in the morning and docket in the afternoon. So I just wanted to address or answer any questions to the people who ask, well, why don't you do this or that? Know that we are strategically doing everything that I think is good and right for our county to be safe while also being cognizant of the issues at the jail. I'm very aware of that. All right? Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. So I know that you said the threat of trial at county court at law is helping a lot. And when I asked for the numbers, you may tell me these aren't right, but I got them from the district clerk's office. The number of trials in 2023 in your court was 22. In the county court of law was 6. the number of jury trials in 2024 was 33, and in county court at law is 8. So I guess they pull that from how many juries they are putting together. So I know you said that he's done a lot of trials for you, but 6 and 8 a year doesn't sound like a lot to me. So
Well,
what's wrong with that number?
I think we must have had 3 in each of those years. 3 jury trials conducted by the county court at law for the district court is a lot. There are some district courts that may have 4 or 5 trials, and he had 3 extra for us. And these are going to be lower level cases, again. These are not the cases that, if you could choose from a financial standpoint, that you want to go to trial on, because the cost is going to be very expensive, and it's one of, relative to the other cases, it's not, the punishment range is not as big. And so that tells me that that order is working. It's working exactly the way we'd want it to be working. I don't think that's a low number at all.
It's 20% of the total trial cases have occurred down there.
Yeah, but could they do more?
No.
And when you said they would be appealed, why would they not be appealed if they were tried in your court?
I don't follow what you're asking.
You said if you want to waste taxpayer money, have a case in county court at law, and then it'll be appealed.
No, that's not at all what I was trying to get across. If
Okay.
that's what
What
you
did
think
you
that I
say?
was. We could have more trials in county court at law. We could have them starting tomorrow. They would be cases that would have been pled. In other words, just to appease people, we could say, no, don't plea it, go to trial. That way, Commissioner Samuelson can look at the numbers and they look better to her. And then what would happen is, that would cost all the money for the trial, then all the money for the appeal. Now, the exact amount of cases have been tried down there that needed to be tried in order to move the amount of cases that we've moved. You don't just, the way it works is we have a full list of cases every time that are set for trial, just about every 2 weeks. If a case isn't resolved that can be tried down there, we'll send it down there. If we can get it done, it's hard to do. But most of the time they get resolved. And that's what I'm saying. That's the benefit. You don't have to have the trial, because we can send it down there to try it and people say, well, I'll take the plea. And so I'm not saying at all that it is a waste of taxpayer money to have trials. It is not. It is a waste of taxpayer money to have trials that are unnecessary when the parties would plea.
Right. So I'm not saying to have a trial if it would be plead at all.
That's what
I agree with you, that would be a waste of money. I
Yes.
just was trying to understand what you meant when you said you can have a trial in county court at law, it'd be a waste of money because then it would be pled. So that didn't make sense to me. So thank you for
Sure.
clarifying that.
Any other questions?
So so is your your order, is it that, you said family, this isn't part of the cross order, you both have jurisdiction to be able to do family
Yes.
court, right? So that's not part of it.
And that's
But-
something that has been done in the past between Judge Walton and Judge Messina. When 2 courts have concurrent jurisdiction, they can agree, I'll take these cases for a little bit while you're doing this other thing. That's perfectly normal.
So is the current agreement, the cross-court agreement, is that all state felons are going to his court, or just some, or what? Can you explain more about the state jail felons in the 3rd degree, and which ones go, which ones are discussed with the lawyers about it might go? I mean, the things that you were saying is, hey, we're going to try all these, so you might want to plea.
So the way that it works is I have every felony case. They are assigned to me. We have trials. We have trial dockets. I've added extra trial dockets in since I've been judge. In other words, an extra week of the year, we've taken off other things and put in more trial dockets. Every felony is mine. Every is assigned to me. Every misdemeanor is assigned to him. If we get to the trial week and there's a state jail felony that hasn't been resolved that can be tried down the hall, and I can do 2 other trials in the district court, then we will do it. That's not always going to work out that way. Like I say, you may have 10 cases and they may all get resolved. That's good too. But they're all still, the cases are assigned to me. I just have, by order, the ability to send them down for him to try them, which, as I said, is, I don't know of any judge that's used their cross-assignment order more than I have to try to help our county.
Thank you.
Just to add to all that, to show you how hard they're working, we've got this is last month's report that's coming in your monthly packet, 64 paper ready to go. So they're working them through that fast. The problem is I'm getting just that much more coming in every day. But 64, what they've been doing is, we've never had this kind of paper ready people at one time. He's getting them in, getting them out.
Well, you can
Ready means getting ready to go to TDC.
That we're waiting for a bed for them, and we've never had these kind of numbers since these guys started working these cases so hard. So whether it's a trial or whether it's a plea, he's working them hard, and the problem is we're getting more people arrested every day. So
You can see that from the numbers.
As a trial attorney and did it for 50 years, if you know that you're not have a chance of going to trial, the best defense lawyer has always been Father Time. And so you never would go to trial, and you just kept pushing it on down. It doesn't cost anything. When you have the threat of going to trial, when you come down there and docket call and know that if you have the lower end felony and you don't plead out, the threat of being sent over to Judge Haddock's court and getting a trial causes that lawyer and that defendant to really have to make a decision. You going to pay me my extra fee for a trial, or do you want to try to work out something? It's very efficient, and the numbers show that it's very efficient. Y'all doing a great job for doing this, no question. And I commend both of you for the hard work that both of you are doing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I know you said you couldn't endorse this, but I've seen this time and again, if we build you another 160 beds, build the county the beds, how would you utilize those new beds? Would it help you in your courts? Could you give more jail time? How would that work?
Okay. This is what I'll say. I do what's going to keep us safe right now. I am very aware of the jail issues. I'm very aware of the jail numbers. But if people need jail time, they're going to get jail time right now. That's just the way that I do it. And then it's up to y'all to figure out how to send them and how much it's going to cost. I will say, though, that from a trying cases perspective, it's harder for attorneys. We're talking about court-appointed defense attorneys. I'm pushing all these cases on them, right? We're pushing them harder than ever here. They've got their clients housed an hour away. I'm now paying for their mileage if they have to drive out to that other jail. Or we're having extra status dockets we'll just bring them to court. You can talk to them here. Because it's harder for attorneys to deal. And when I was a practicing attorney, I had to do that. It happens, but that is a real thing that happens. But if I'm being honest with you, I'm not going to change what I'm doing as far as if people deserve to be in jail, they're going to be in jail.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Eagle, do you have any other questions? All right, thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you for coming down, Judge Buskett. Brad Yarborough.
Yeah, you kind of answered some of my questions when you were talking about if it was going to raise the tax dollars money or not. So I would like to know if it would raise taxes in Hood County for this. One thing that kind of alarms me is you guys constantly waste taxpayers' money. When Becky Kidd was here, she had a plan that we could have done this without even doing a bond, and y'all failed to do that. And then she had where you could pay off debt early, and y'all failed to do that. Y'all wanted to invest the money instead of paying off a debt early, which would have saved the taxpayers a lot of interest. You're shaking your head, no, I can pull up the day when it happened.
We profited off of that deal, that's bad math.
But,
If you don't understand interest rates, then
you wanted to invest the money not knowing you couldn't do it because it was in the coffer where you only could use that money to pay debt. But let's go back on subject here where
not
for
accurate.
this jail, I want to keep the taxpayer money here in Hood County. Instead of wasting it, sending it everywhere else, all this 1.4 million that we're paying now is only going to grow. It's going to keep growing. And we've been on this jail for, 4 years now trying to get this done. Y'all just keep kicking this can down the road. Let the taxpayers put this as a bond. Let the taxpayers decide. Let's get some info. What I'd like to see is if we do a bond, that we put out some information on it, Sheriff, so we can get this loud minority people that like to spread misinformation and get the correct information out there so taxpayers can be informed correctly and get this passed, because we're going to need this jail eventually. It's going to happen. It's going to be where at one point we're not going to be able to house inmates anywhere else. And you're hoping that, jails are built everywhere else so we can keep sending them out. And that's just not a solution. Hood County needs to pay for this jail. We need to get it done. We need to get it done sooner than later.
You guys have been very patient with me answering questions and such, so thank y'all very much for letting me talk to you again. As far as listening to Judge Bufkin, first of all, I'm very supportive of him, and I think that he made a strong argument for having a visiting judge come in because he's doing the very best he can. He's working really fast. He and his office, I think maybe we need to look at hiring more investigators and maybe another assistant DA just to help try some of these cases and get a visiting judge in and see if we can't clear that docket. I was alarmed at the number of cases that he's trying to get off his docket. So I think that would require us to look into that. Also, I don't believe that the auditor has actually set the rate on a bond if there is a bond, so we can't say that the tax rate's going to stay the same because we don't have that information yet. I think there's so much information that we still need, and I would like to look at that before we put a bond on the ballot. Thank you.
Anything else?
yeah, are you asking for the public or are we going to? Okay. Well, first of all, I just thank you all for coming on such short notice and for all of your comments. I really appreciate that. And Judge Bufkin, thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to come and talk. First, I just want to address the way that this meeting was put together. It gives me a lot of pause and doubt on really what's going on. I feel like we were blindsided, and even more so today when we got a brand-new document at 8:27. Apparently, it had been shared with other people prior to that because apparently we've already talked to our bond counsel about it. When I saw the special called meeting be announced, I was, why do we need to have a special called meeting when we have Commissioners Court in 2 days? All I was told was time is of the essence. Must be pretty important. There must be a lot of backup. There must be some information we're going to get so that we can understand why we have such urgency for this special called meeting. Time is of the essence. However, when I asked for backup, I was told there wasn't any. I then reached out to the sheriff and said, hey, this is about the jail. I know I've had several conversations with Eric and Leland about issues going on with the jail, the plumbing that Commissioner Andrews talked about and some other smaller issues going on with the jail, but I don't think that's what this is about. And I asked the sheriff if he had any new documentation, revised estimates or drawings, and from the architect, which he said he had none. Come to find out that Sheriff Deeds did receive a new estimate and a plan from the architects on December 16th. That is not what we were given today, but there had been some conversations. Why was this information intentionally withheld from me when I directly asked the sheriff for it? There was some emails between Sheriff Deeds and Mr. Adams around December 17th saying, here's a new jail plan. Not the one we got today, but there was a new one. Again, on February 4th, Sheriff Deeds told me I don't have anything new from DRG. Again, why was this information withheld from me? So this whole process is not starting off well. I feel like there's deception. It's not a good look for a county that prides itself on being transparent to the taxpayers. One of the things that was in the old plan, now the new plan, I would say the old plan, which was the December 17th plan, which actually was the day I was going to cast my electoral vote for Donald Trump. But on December 17th, and again on this plan we just got today, there is the recommendation from DRG to not include contingency in the bond. That is against the Republican platform 67, which says that all costs, including contingency, must be in the bond. Now this contingency on $20 million is going to be a lot less, but it still needs to be included. So I went through from the plan that I got, the December 17th plan that I received, not from Sheriff Deeds, but I did receive it, and compared. But that was all wasted work because that's not the plan we got today. So I also learned that there had been quite a bit of discussion about tax notes and a way to bypass the voters. I reviewed the plan that was prepared by our financial consultant, I think at the request of a couple of the commissioner and the judge. The tax notes were the fundamentals on those tax notes were terrible. They were looking for a way to pay for the $50 million jail or the $45 million jail, which was the December 17th plan, with tax notes, which bypass the voters. The plan was to use $1 million in excess sales tax every year, because tax notes have to be statutorily paid back in 7 years. And to reallocate the $1.8 million Crescent bypass funds that will be paid off in, I think, 2 more payments to pay the tax notes. First of all, that would require any future court to purposely underestimate sales tax to be sure they had $1 million to pay towards a tax note. And how would we know that any future court would choose to do that with their excess sales tax, or to take the $1.18 million that's currently coming out of the general fund to go into pay this tax note? So thankfully, that terrible plan was put aside. But mind you, this was a plan to bypass the taxpayers. And on top of that, the AG would likely not approve this plan going around the taxpayers. So one of the things that I've heard today, and thank you, Judge Bufkin, for coming in and explaining it, because I had those numbers, but you did a much better job of explaining than I could. We are making progress. And with the Trump administration, just in 3 weeks, you guys, just 3 weeks, border crossings have plummeted. And speaking of President Trump, are we not paying attention to what's going on around the U.S., Hood County overwhelmingly voted for President Trump, knowing that DOGE was happening. And those of us that voted for Trump are ecstatic to see efficiencies happening every single day. We are rejoicing to see waste being hacked away from the federal budget. It's reasonable to assume that those same voters demand efficiency in their county government. So the efficiency that we're getting with the working relationship between the county court at law and the district court is a good plan. And that we're seeing improvement already, and if there's any more, I know that Judge Haddix has mentioned on several occasions that he can do more. So we have, as you may, if you've been following our budget, get the numbers here. Just in the last 3 years, the DA's budget has increased 33%. A lot of that is due to Senate Bill 22. And the county attorney's budget has increased 48%. Again, a lot of that is because SB 22 is the grants that are coming from the state to help with this issue. So we're starting to see the improvement. There's been one of the things that we did very poorly the last time this bond was put on was give information to the public. There was no analysis that was done to tell the voters. We had the construction cost, but we didn't tell the voters what else would be included or what the trade-offs were, what the comparisons were. I come from a business background. You call that financial analysis. You call it, when you do a capital project, you look at alternatives, you make assumptions, you take it out to 5 or 10 years, and you give people that are planning to fund your project, in this case the voters, you give them the information to make an informed decision. We did not do that prior to the November election. Now at the very end, the last court in October, Stephanie and I, thanks with the sheriff, tried to throw some numbers together very quickly, but it wasn't good. It wasn't complete, it wasn't all the information, and there was no time to get it out to the public. So has any more analysis been done on that? Do we have any more information to provide the voters? And as you may know, we know that once an election is called, as elected officials, we're pretty much restricted from saying very much at all about this situation. So the time to talk about it, the time to get your input, is before we call the election. Do you know that the reason that this meeting was called emergency, wasn't called emergency, but time is of the essence today, is because the last day to put a bond on the ballot is next Friday. Do we have time to get these numbers together to give the voters the information? There's a lot of good information that was put today, but who's watching this video? Thank you for being in the room, but we have 48,000 registered voters. Is that close?
Just over 50.
Okay, 50,000 registered voters that need this information. We had a record turnout in November with how many voters? Greg, Mr. Harrell?
In terms of percentage?
How many voters voted in November?
40,000.
Over 70%.
So we had a record turnout, and they told us no. Is it the right thing to do to bring it back in less than a few months without giving them the information that they need to make a decision? We won't be able to discuss it once we call for the election. So why the rush? Do we think the outcome will be different just a few months down the road? This approach has not worked well for the school district. And what's the plan if it fails? So I'll close with this in summary. I don't like the way that this was rushed, put together, the deception, the last minute. We got more information today that apparently had been worked on prior to this. I don't agree with rushing something that we need time, as I agree with Commissioner Andrews, we need time to look at all of the inputs, all of the options, put together that financial analysis, that business case scenario, so that we have information to be transparent with the voters so that they can make an informed decision. That's it.
I got a question. Were you saying that our great sheriff was withholding information, or people on the court were holding information from you?
I have, Sheriff Deeds knows he knows the questions that I asked him.
Well, I was asking you, are you saying he's withholding, or the commissioners were withholding
No,
it?
I asked him directly for some new drawings from DRG.
That doesn't answer my question. But if the commissioners were withholding, if it's my understanding that if Andrews was talking to Dave, Jack, or the judge, he can't come and talk to you if he's talking to someone. That's a walking quorum. So
you're exactly right.
are you trying to say our great sheriff is withholding information?
I'm saying
This
this
isn't anything new. This is something we've been trying to do for 4 years. So 4 years we've been trying to get this jail, and this is nothing new. We're not kicking.
I asked for backup information for this meeting, if any new information had been provided from our architects
When did you ask for that?
after this meeting was scheduled.
This is so far off topic. Let's get back to what we're trying to do.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this, and we have a...
My reputation. Let me go ahead. I'm going to respond to that, okay? This meeting was called because of the new drawings, because I got it this morning when you came in and handed it to me. That was the first time. I think the sheriff, when was the first time you got him? Was this morning, wasn't it? Correct. Got him this morning.
7:50, same time I got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Here's the deal. When I first ran 6 years ago, I ran on the platform that we needed a jail at that time 6 years ago. That's always been my position. And when it was defeated, the bond was defeated in November, you bet, I tried to see if there's any other conceivable way that we can get a jail. I make no excuse for that. I'm going to continue to try to get us a new jail because I, for one, think that that is the best and being a good fiduciary for the citizens of Hood County to have a jail that will house our inmates for all the reasons that's been discussed up here today. It was Commissioner Wilson and me talking about this because, as Mr. Yarborough has brought out, if one other commissioner gets with Jack and I, it's called a running quorum. It violates the Open Meetings Act. It's illegal. Can't do that.
That's correct.
So Mr. Wilson and I, Jack Wilson came up with the idea, well, let's don't do the remodeling of the old jail. That took out a huge cost of the last jail. The bond amount was over $40 million. The conversation that Mr. Wilson had with Mr. Adams was that it would be around 19 million, just guessing it earlier in the week, like Tuesday, I think was when.
Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon when we were talking about it. I said, listen, if it's less than $20 million, that's a huge difference between what the voters of Hood County were asked to do in November. Huge difference. And you bet, I went and I asked and got a meeting with our auditor to see if we could talk to Hillcrest securities if there was any way we could do a tax note or was any other way we could finance it. They came back and says, no, you really can't do that. But we talked about innumerable things, but didn't get any information. But when Jack talked to Mr. Adams this week, Monday afternoon, we didn't get any backup information to give you, Mrs. Samuelson.
Okay.
So I didn't get anything until this morning. But you talk about transparency. This new drawing right here that will give us these new bids for the $18,770,000, that is a huge deal. It's a new way of thinking about this. I was never a proponent for remodeling that existing jail because, like Commissioner Andrews was saying, those cast iron plumbings, it could go out any day. So put millions of dollars into that old jail, that didn't seem like a good idea to me to begin with. But this is a new concept and a new deal, and I think that the voters of Hood County are entitled to know that you're going to be spending $2 million a year housing inmates in other counties when you can get a new jail and keep all that $2 million here in Hood County. That's what I'm saying. That makes sense to me. Now, if other people disagree with that, you know, that's what a constitutional republic is all about. Just go ahead and vote it. But this is something new. But we didn't find out about it until this morning. I knew conceptually that it was, but that was a conversation among Commissioner Wilson, myself, and then with Gary Adams. I didn't talk to Mr. Adams, but Commissioner Wilson was talking to him. We couldn't share it with any other commissioner because it violates the Open Rules Act. It's illegal for us to do that. When we got the information this morning, that's as early as Gary Adams could get these architectural drawings to us. Now, you talk about the essence of time, you bet. When the Hillcrest Security says it's got to be on the docket no later than next Friday, that's the urgency of it. That is the time constraint. And because of that, that's why we called this workshop this morning. So we can talk about it, present these new plans. We can look at it. We can ask questions. You can get the sheriff. You can get the information from the auditor about the actual checks that have been sent to these counties that total $1,500,000. They actually were paid to Erath, Johnson County, Somerville County, Parker County. All of that money went. And this is the deal, folks. It's going to be greater this year because the cost of inmates is going up. On Tuesday's Commissioner Court meeting, Erath County is going from $65 to $100. We're voting for, that's a big increase. And all the other counties are going to go up to $100. Before we get out of this year, every county that we're sending inmates to is going to charge $100 a day. It's going to be more next year than the $2 million that we spent this year, fiscal year. You think that the voters of Hood County are entitled to know that information? I think they do. I make no apology for that. I think that they're entitled to see this. I really thank Mr. Adams for working triple overtime to get it to us from Friday afternoon till today. That's no small feat, ladies and gentlemen, to come back and give this detailed analysis and these type of drawing in 3 days.
Monday afternoon till this morning. Now, just for the record, Wednesday, a week ago, Commissioner Samuelson and Commissioner Andrews had a meeting in his office and discussing this thing. In fact, it was Commissioner Andrews that brought up the idea to put it on the bond in front of the election administrator, because he asked the election administrator what was the cutoff date. Wednesday afternoon, a week ago, just for the record.
That meeting was
And
about...
we could not talk because y'all had already talked.
That meeting was scheduled by me to talk to Leland, our construction, our building maintenance, to talk about maintenance of the current jail. As I mentioned earlier, that had to do with the plumbing, the weep holes. I had no idea that it was going to go into, I had no idea this was going on. I didn't know that on December 16th that there was an email from Gary Gondek, the architect, Hood County Jail Additions and Renovations Schematic Floor Plan. And that was forwarded to the sheriff, who then forwarded it to the judge and Jack, saying, Gary Adams sent me another plan for the jail. So why didn't you send this to me when I asked you for it the other day?
We already talked that there, well, I talked to these guys and him that we needed something to bring back to the people in the court that was going to be easier to swallow. So he kept on working until he came up with this. So I didn't have this till today.
Right, but when I said, do you have anything new from the architects, you said no, but you obviously did. You had this. So I'm just, no, sir.
With Mr.
I
Adams.
knew that one wasn't going to come to the court.
Well, that could have been explained.
I guess you could do the open records on my stuff and get whatever you want.
No, I thought that I could just ask you for information and you would.
I didn't have this until today.
But you had, when I asked you if there was any new information, you told me no. And so anyway, you could have said, there is something, here it is, but this is not what we're discussing on the, I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
The Open Rules Act, because Jack Wilson and I have talked about it with the sheriff.
No, he can provide information to me. It could be backup, he can provide it.
I'm sorry. I guess I should have gave you stuff that I knew wasn't going to go anywhere, but I didn't. And I guess you did open records on me, so you got it anyway. And
I have it, but that was...
it's going to cost this county a bunch of money.
With this meeting, nothing. I looked at that and said, that's not going to fly. We're not going to go back to the voters on anything like that. I was totally disinterested in that.
Okay.
That was not it.
That's beside the point.
That was not the purpose of me asking for this workshop here this morning.
That's beside the point.
What was the purpose of me asking for this workshop is what came out of a meeting with Jack Wilson and I on Monday afternoon, when Jack said, what if we just forget about the remodeling and let's just see about just getting new cells, just new additional cells. And I said, I never thought about it that way, because it was always either a whole new jail with approximately 400 beds or remodeling the old jail and then adding part of a new jail. And that's what the cost was always so much. So when Jack came up with just say, let's see what it costs for just some new jail cells, that came up as of Monday afternoon. And when Jack called and talked to Gary Adams, and he put a pencil to it and got back late Monday evening and said that roughly he looked at it, maybe $19 or $20 million, Jack Wilson told me that, and I said, that's worth having a workshop on. I will call a workshop, tell Gary he needs to have something to us by today. So I put it on the docket. That's as soon as I could get it. Everybody had it, and nobody had any information, Ms. Samuelsman. And I really resent your saying that we were deceptive or deceitful to you. If I had any information, I certainly would have given it to you. We did not. What we were talking about today is all that Mr. Adams delivered to us this morning, and you got it the same time I got it.
And
I
that
like
leads
this
me-
plan. I
and that-
like the looks of this. I think that this is something that we can sit around and start debating, start talking to, start answering some questions, get some analysis, get some feedback, start looking at this thing, and move forward as a group. We don't need to be bickering over this thing. There's going to be some squabble in there, for sure.
agree.
But let's get a plan that everybody can get behind. We have a need. There's no doubt. We have a need. Where we get together to satisfy that need is what's pertinent and germane, and let's move on with this.
And again, we've been working on this for 4 years, so this is nothing new. I believe the
We've been
auditor can have.
We've been over this jail
Absolutely.
since 2000. This has been going on for way longer than 4 years. We
So
have
we're on
something that we
year
need to
5
deal
now.
with. Let's
So-
get together, get some information, make this
I
happen.
would like to see a special called meeting for Thursday.
I'm not ready to do this. I'm not ready to do this in the May election. I don't think that we have the information,
just wanna
the
keep
input,
kicking it down
and the
and the cost is just gonna
analysis
keep
that we're
going
going
up.
to do.
That's the part you don't
in
understand.
February the 14th.
The cost keeps going
Let's
up.
just move on. I do understand that, Brad. I do
No, because
understand that.
this is 5 years in the making.
All
That
right, I'm not going
proves
to
that
sit
you
here
don't
and argue
understand.
with you on this. Let's get back to the material thing at hand. What do we do to solve our problem? This is ridiculous. Let's have
What
an
you
adult
do is
conversation and solve the problem.
You add on to this jail.
I agree. So let's get this thing, let's get it right. Because right now, if you put this out, there's going to be so much resistance just because of how quickly it's
There's
been
going to be
done.
resistance
So let's
because
have a
this
discussion.
minority keeps spreading misinformation.
All right. We have anything else to talk about with a jail?
Yeah, I got something on the jail.
5 years, 5 years.
You can sit down when
5
I'm
years.
ready.
Five.
It's
5
time for me
years
to say
now.
something.
How come you haven't come up with a better solution in 5 years? Any of you? Seriously,
Well,
what's the
this is-
solution? You say, you keep kicking that can, 5 years now.
Hold it.
All right,
Hey,
that's good.
Like I said, we've heard a bunch of stuff. It's always been a total new jail or a combination of remodeling the old jail and adding new jail cells. This is the first time this has been brought, and it was hatched on Monday afternoon with Mr. Wilson after kicking around everything about what we can do. And then Monday afternoon is when that started. No one was ever asked to do that. Only thing this workshop was called to today was something that was started Monday afternoon, and we're having a workshop on it today. So let's clear the air. That's what's happened. I agree with you. This is where it is. So let's take this, hopefully. It's a good start with $20 million, that this is something that maybe the taxpayers are willing to do, since we're spending at least $2 million a year, and it's going to go up from there.
So we keep pointing out the $2 million a year that we're spending on other jails to house our inmates, but the truth is that we have to house them somewhere. So if they weren't over there, they'd be over here, and it costs us more to do that. So in my estimation, based on the numbers that you gave us, that we saved $200,000 just this past year housing them in other jails than housing them in our own jails.
That's not exactly what was said, and I think that Mr. Turbo.
I just mean you can't keep saying that it's costing us $2 million.
Same stuff, and you and I disagree on what we heard, okay?
That's fair.
So, is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. But so
That's
then
why
I'll
we need
also
the
say that the
analysis.
timeliness of it, such that nobody got the information before this morning. I'll take your word on that, that nobody got the information before this morning. So no one's been able to do any homework on it.
Right.
And so,
Got it now, so we don't have the.
but now there's a rush to try to get it on the ballot. The taxpayers have already spoken on this and said no just 13 weeks ago.
That's why we need the analysis.
They didn't have this new proposal, did they?
But you didn't either.
That's why we need to do the total,
That's right. So there's a lot of homework to be done on this before that happens. Nobody had it before today.
Right,
And
that's
now we
why
want to
we
rush to
need-
try to get it on the ballot before next Friday.
that's why we need time to go through the total cost of,
I've seen government move. It doesn't go move that fast. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, we got Mr. Eagle wanting to speak.
First of all, I received a call from the administrative assistant Monday morning about setting up. I want to dispel this Monday afternoon deal. I received a call Monday morning. Am I available Friday for a special call meeting? So there's some misinformation there. But I want to tell, I've got a lot to say, but I think I'll just wait till next week for most of it. If we keep this May agenda item on the agenda for next week, I'll tell you what I got to say then. But I want to tell you a story. I got a story to tell you. It's about a guy named Cole Stanley. Anybody ever heard of Cole Stanley? Cole Stanley was a city council member, the city of Amarillo. The city of Amarillo has 4 city council members and a mayor. Cole was a city council member. In 2020, the Amarillo City Council voted to put a $75 million bond on a ballot. It went to a vote, and the voters resoundingly voted it down. Within the next few months, the majority of the city council decided that they're going to do tax notes for $260 million. The scheme that the then mayor brought together was to issue $260 million in tax notes, pay small payments for the first 6 years, balloon it out the 7th year, because you can only go 7 years with a tax note, balloon it out in the 7th year, and then start over again, hoping some kind of miracle might happen to start paying this money back. They put that on the agenda and voted to issue these tax notes, and the vote was 4-1. Cole Stanley was the one dissenting vote who stated, I got to vote against this because we just put it to the voters and they voted it down. This is not right to bring this right back to them another time this quick. Somebody sued the city council. And the AG, by the way, has to approve a tax note. If you pass a tax note, it still has to go to the Ken Paxton's office to be approved. Went to lawsuit, and the lawsuit, they ended up voiding the tax notes. Fast forward to 2023 election, city council, every one of them, except one, were voted off that city council. And you know who the mayor is in Amarillo right this minute? Cole Stanley. So I question the wisdom, and I've got plenty more to say if we have this if we don't pull this off the agenda on Tuesday. I got plenty more to add to this, but the Republican Party is adamant. There is legislation that's been introduced in this legislative session that says we need to have bond measures in the November election because you stand a better chance of having more people informed to come vote in that November election. If you try to run in a May election, I'm going to tell you right now, it will fail. I guarantee you, and people around here are sick of it. So I agree with Mr. Andrews. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's get the people informed out here and start working our way towards a November ballot to ask them to reconsider the jail and get off this. Let's do it right this minute, because I don't agree with that. We have too many issues that come to this court that we got to do it right this minute. And this is not one of them. We've been working on this for a while. We've got the plans ready to go. All we need to do now is ask the public to get on board with this. And we're not going to do it between now and next Friday. That's my opinion.
Well, Mr. Eagles is entitled for his opinion. My opinion is this. We have a crisis in the jail, and the information is pretty clear. That's why I had the workshop here. To me, it's pretty clear about how much we're paying and what it costs to ship these inmates to these other counties, and what it's going to cost to build these new jail cells here. I don't know kind of what else is left to uncover. But in the next 7 days we got here, if there's any questions, I'm sure that we can add something. But we've been talking about this jail for, like I said, I know for 6 years. That was one of the things I ran on 6 years ago. I think this county needs new jail facilities for the sheriff. That's what I think. But with that, I guess we're through. So this workshop is adjourned. Thank y'all.